Hi, how's it going? This is Resident of Collinwood for YouTube, back with another Dark Shadows video for you guys and gals. I'm here to do a video about the Leviathan people. We first meet the Leviathans in 1796. Barnabas, goes back in time from 1897, and he manages to convince Josette's aunt, Natalie Dupre, to have him have her meet Barnabas in the old house. Josette waits and waits and waits and eventually disappears into her portrait. Um, it's really, really interesting. This is sort of gives credence to the Leviathans that they have Josette's ghost. This here. Um, so you're sort of, again, just because someone's an antagonist doesn't mean they're always lying. Now, we're going to come to find out later on that they are lying. I'm not trying to jump around, I'm just trying to let you guys know. Yes, spoiler alert. So, and that's really interesting too, because eh, this is what they entrap Barnabas with. I mean, they tell him we have Josette's ghost prisoner, and when you think about what happened in 1796, it's it's sort of hard to dispute this because it's like, okay, who did that then? But here's what I think really happened from a standpoint. Remember, we've seen death in the form of Mr. Best, okay? Now, now that we know Mr. Best exists, that Mr. Best is in existence, that there is literal, I mean, death has always surrounded dark shadows, right? So we know death, like Satan, is a character. Sorry, God. But there's this, here's this moment where Josette's, you know, body goes into a portrait. Why does this happen? I think it's really death and fate and just time correcting what Barnabas had attempted. I mean, look, Barnabas has already somewhat altered the course of history once by not completely killing Nathan Forbes. So fate is not going to let Barnabas intervene on something that already happened. So I think this is more fate's doing and death's doing than so much the Leviathan. Though when this happens, like I said, this does give the Leviathan some credence and some really credibility. I mean, that's what I'll always tell you that you want to give characters credibility, even if they are heels, and you do. Well, saying you have a ghost prisoner is pretty. It sounds far fetched, but when you see Josette's body sort of dissipate, it's sort of hard to argue against. And then when you find now again, like I said, you find out that they really don't, which is like, okay, that was interesting. They did, now they don't, or they lied. So the Leviathan's power that we know of so far is, yes, they can time travel, and yes, they can manipulate people, and they're very great at manipulation. Not good, great at it. I mean, they manipulated Barnabas, for God's sake. They got Liz under their control. They got David under. David's working with them. I mean, David working with something evil isn't exactly new, but oh, sorry, but hey, by the way, you want to talk about somebody who Michael Myers' essence could have went into? David. David. Okay. Uh, oh my God, David Collins. What a character. So It's interesting, the only person who doesn't really get affected is Roger. You would think, but I think Roger's really just sick of the Leviathans. This is something we've needed from Roger. He's more sick of everyone's at it, like, oh, everyone would just bend into Barnabas's will. He's sick of it. And this is something we needed to see from Roger, from Lewis Edmonds' character, and it's really good. So the Leviathan people, they tell Barnabas, like I said, they have, again, the ghost. Barnabas serves under the Leviathan people. So what are the Leviathan people? Well, they're mythical. The Leviathans are a mythical sea creature. They're mostly from H.P. Lovecraft, and that's what they're taking this from. So here's the Leviathan people. They Barnabas comes back to the present day. He tells Julia he could not do anything to help Chris, which really isn't a lie. I mean, by not doing anything to help Chris, you could say he knew about Charles Delaware Tate. Yeah, but did he know Charles Delaware Tate was still going to be alive in the future? No. So there's that. Now, he could have mentioned Charles Delaware Tate, and I secretly think Barnabas lies to Julia so it so it doesn't. I secretly think he does this on purpose so Julia gets suspicious of him. Somewhat. I really do. Because why else do you knowingly lie to Julia Hoffman just to get her out of your hair? I mean, you could just tell her, yeah, there was this guy named Charles Delaware. I mean, what's the harm? Seriously. He's out there somewhere. Uh, I mean, you could say, well, he doesn't want to get tied up into that with the Leviathans. Yeah. But here's the thing, if he could keep Julia off his back and help her to a degree, gets her off of his back. And he could convince the Leviathans, hey, if I just get her off my back, we can continue on. Uh, no, he doesn't do that. He just lies to her. And I think he does it on purpose. So the Leviathans entrust in Barnabas because they have something hanging over his head, the ghost of Josette. They don't really have it though. So he is grooming this these. He gives the Todds this young baby to raise, and raise it they do. They raise a fine, strapping young lad who's going to go on to terrorize the people at Collinwood, including the governess Maggie, Anne Elizabeth. Uh, this kid's going to put David in a wheelchair. I mean, he's a fine, strapping young lad. No, he's not. Um, so the Leviathan people also, one thing you could tell about them is they're really influential with powerful people, and they love to be influential, powerful people. I mean, why else do you choose the Collins family to go after? Why else do you choose them? Because they're powerful and rich. And it's something tells me within this story, this is not the first attempt of takeover from the Leviathans. That the Leviathans have done this time and time again. They've probably done it with kings, queens, princesses, etc., 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 rulers in general, dictators, anything else I mean, you could probably debate this is probably why there was world wars, that the Leviathan probably helped cause certain events, and that's part of their influence. This is not the first time you're going to see characters like this in other places in other shows like this. That I think sort of back to the Manchurian Candidate in a way, where there was this hypnosis going on, but there were outside parties that were influencing it. along with the mother. So now this doesn't have necessarily have to do with anything with a mother involved in it necessarily. Barnabas again, he says he's once told Adam he's not a good teacher. Now I will say this: for a man who has no problem breaking the rules, I really find it interesting. Barnabas is really keen on sticking to the Leviathan book, and really the reason is because he was told to stick to that book by the Leviathans. So he does keep reminding Michael and all the iterations that hey, we this is what we have to stick to here, and he's right. It's supposed to be Carolyn's father who gives her away, and Michael, and then later Jeb tells him, well, "You can just give her away." Well, I'm not her father, and he's right. He's not. Them. I think this is sort of where Barnabas is. Again, Barnabas is obviously playing both sides, and he's just stalling, really. But in a lot of ways, he's right. He was told to stick to the book. It's really weird. I'll say this: Jeb Hawks is really a great, strange character. In many ways, I view him like the reverse Anakin Skywalker. Instead of a good guy turning bad, turning back good, you have a guy who starts off bad, who's really bad, kills some people, turns good, falls in love with Carolyn, um, and then gets killed. So there's that. It's really, really interesting how he does not want to stick to the book. I've always found this interesting. It's like this guy is more of, he sort of reminds you of Carolyn. And this is exactly why they belong together, is because they're so goddamn alike. I mean, Carolyn was not one for the rules either, and she's never been one for the rules. Well, neither is Jeb. Even if it's the Leviathan's rules, it does not matter. I don't. And here's the thing: it wouldn't have mattered who said stick to the rules. Whether it would have been, it could have been Sky Rumson who told him, and I'm going to get into that too. He still would have went against it because he's not one for the rules. He does not care for them. And I think really why were the Leviathans so wrong in their choice and how they made this young man? When you have these beings that have this strong will and strong tenacity and really demand a lot of other people, they're so used to that power that it becomes, how do I put this? Imagine giving a kid all this power to be able to do something. Okay, is that kid going to have that maturity to be patient when they have all this power and they know as they get older they're going to get more power and more power, and then if they're going to get married they're going to get more power? Does that always equal patience? And the answer is no, it doesn't. And I think that's a lot of what you see in Jeb too, a lack of patience. Again, it's sort of Anakin Skywalker-esque before Anakin Skywalker actually existed. Um, you know, and I think too with Jeb, with Jeb, when he fell in love with Carolyn, I mean, who could blame him? And again, he wasn't one for the rules. And again, neither was Carolyn. Sky Rumson is really an interesting character. You don't know he's working for the Leviathan. And when his car pulls up and he talks to Carolyn and stuff, it's really, really interesting how you're believing him later on when he says to Angelique, "Oh, I just I got an earlier ride." You're sort of relieved because what's going on is the wind is whirling. There's this evil sound. Things are sound like they're breaking. It's so sinister. And here comes this car, and it's Sky Rumson. And you're thinking, "Oh my God, thank God!" And he's sort of perplexed about what's going on. And he talks to Angelique, and he says, I just caught an earlier ride. I'm sorry. I wanted to get a hold of you, but I couldn't." I, the Dark Shadows writers here are about to swerve the audience. And it's such a great one. It's such a great twist. So here's Sky Rumson. You believe him. I bought this. I'm thinking I give Sky the benefit. Now he loves Angelique. He wouldn't do anything to her. And I was wrong. Um, Nicholas Blair showing up was just things were going downhill. So Nicholas is a servant of him. Sky Rumson is a servant. They gave Sky Rumson all this money, and he works for them. You have people at Collinwood who are working for them. They have a lot of influence and power, and are not afraid to use it. And it lets you know that there are people who are willing to accept them, Sky being one of them. Not just, it's one thing to say Nicholas accepts them. Nicholas accepts everything evil. Um, Now, with a guy like Sky, though, it's like, wait, this guy was offered a fortune to be a billionaire, and he took it. He took it, and I think it would have been real interesting if they would have revealed that secretly Sky Rumson was the real leader of the Leviathan, or the devil himself, and the devil was the leader of the Leviathan. Now they don't do that, but it would have been real interesting if that was the ultimate reveal. Again, I like the character Sky Rumson the way he is, but I think though too, once that Sky's reveal as a member of the Leviathan is shocking. But I think too, because he's married to Angelique, Angelique has really turned over a new leaf. Because if she hadn't, she wouldn't have been running into Barnabas's arms. People talk about 1840 and, oh, Angelique turning good, out of nowhere. Well, I mean, if she were really wanting to be bad, why not join up with a Leviathan? Why not go against Barnabas? This is where her love for Barnabas really, like, I can't do it. I can't go against the man I love. And she doesn't. She doesn't go against him. So, again, you know, there, Angelique has her moments. And really, this sort of hinders the Sky character to a degree. He's lost Angelique, and the Leviathan really don't have that big of a hold over. I mean, basically, it's now, well, you got to do it or you give up your riches. Uh, Again, it would have been. I do wish they would have saved this a bit and maybe just had him be the real leader. Or again, or be the devil. But it's really a great plot twist. It's to me, it's one of the best plot twists, if not the best plot twist in Dark Shadows. Sky Rumson's heel turn is holy shit moment. Because again, I wasn't expecting it. I didn't see it coming. I think with the Leviathan people, though, it goes to show you that they do deal with normal people. I mean, you sort of get that sense not just with Barnabas, but with Megan and Philip Todd, and with Sky. So, and I no, I don't think this is the first time they've dealt with normal people. Again, I think they've dealt with kings, queens, peasants, any anybody who's either willing to help their cause, or they can blackmail or threaten to help their cause, they'll do it. And it's really, really interesting that they do this. Now, what hurt the Leviathan arc the most? This is tough because I'm not trying to play Monday morning quarterback here. Too many weaknesses. That's number one. And let me explain. Their first and only weakness that we know of is the werewolf. I sometimes wonder if the writers were going to write where Chris Jennings could somehow control the werewolf after he turned, which would have been really, really ballsy and interesting. And I could see the writers attempting something like this. Now they don't, but it would have been interesting. Meaning the werewolf turn against the Leviathan, go against the Leviathan like he's always meant to. But if you have it as a, but if they would have kept it as a random like they did, which they did do, and the Leviathan never know, oh, it's a full moon. They try to, but they don't know who the werewolf is, and their members are getting killed, and they don't know who it is. That is pretty terrifying for a heel to sort of look over their shoulder, which is great. So again, their weakness starts off a werewolf. Okay. Then their weakness is ghost. Then their weakness, oh, they're afraid of vampire. They're afraid of the supernatural. Like Moon Knight, the weaknesses are too much. And I really think that once you start spouting off weaknesses and too many of them, how tough can they really be? Or how badass can they really be? That many weaknesses. One weakness. It, you don't have to treat the Leviathans like they're Barnabas as a vampire and they have all this weakness and you can use it against them. No, you don't. One weakness to me would have been enough. Number two, I don't know what that form was when he went into the room, but I wish we would have saw it. And again, I mean, we've saw the devil, we've saw zombies, we saw a wraith. God, we've been to hell. I mean, how bad can it look? Don't answer. Don't answer that. That's a hypothetical question. It's a rhetorical question, I should say. How bad can it look? It can look as bad as me, if not worse. Oh my God. I mean, it is something to wonder. I mean, it's something you can leave the audience hanging with. I get that. Now, the Leviathan's downfall is, Barnabas smashing the box because, Jeb falls in love with Carolyn. And, do I think we'll see the Leviathan people again one day? Yeah, one day. I think I don't think it's a bad arc. But I do think at times with the arc itself, it sort of loses its own traction because again, this isn't the only thing going on within the arc. It is the main thing going on, but it isn't the only thing. They're wrapping up. They're trying to wrap up 1897 a bit with Charles Delaware Tate to give Tate some more importance, and that goes wrong. So there's that. So again, there's that being Do I think that's its biggest issue? No, but I also think that, again, eh, Dark Shadows generally did wrap up one arc before they moved on. Generally, I mean, okay, saving Victoria Winters was important. Okay, telling us the story about Charles Delaware Tate still being out there is important to who? Chris Jennings. So they had to tell that story, that the curse of the werewolf was forever going to be with Chris, and because it had a special meaning, especially 'cause that's what Charles Delaware Tate's death really signifies to me. It's not just the destruction of Charles Delaware Tate. To me, it spells doom for the Leviathan, which makes things really interesting. And that's something I walk away from a positive standpoint of the Leviathan art too. That was a really great potential thing you had, but they never really capitalized on it enough. And again, there's that too that goes on in this art. Not enough capitalization from the standpoint of they had a weakness, they should have exploited it a lot more. Um, Again, I don't hate this arc. I like it. It's interesting. I know people feel very different about it. That's fine. I will say, it did shock me that you had these creatures in robes. Like, wait, you're in robes? Robes? I've seen robes like that. It belonged to a guy in hell. Did he lend it to you? Oh my god. All right, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. Uh, I'll be back sometime tomorrow. You guys have a great night.